testimonies@gmail.com. As we begin this retreat on the power of the Holy Eucharist, last month we did the retreat on the power of the Holy Word, God's Word. And now to continue with this, and there's a reason why we are continuing with this, so that we understand even more deeply the connection between the Word and the Eucharist as well, and how essential that connection is to us. I remember when we used to do the Magnificat in Chennai and Bangalore. This was an evening service we would have basically in 3 cities on Friday night. Once a month it used to happen on Friday night, Saturday night and Sunday night. So one night it would be in Chennai, one night it would be in Bangalore, and the other night it would be in Mangalore. And we would travel the train journey at night and go to the next city. So all the 3 nights had that service, and it had the train journey as well. And they continue that from the Divine Retreat Center in Kerala. They continue the Magnificat programs in Chennai and Bangalore. I remember one of the days I'd gone for the Magnificat to Bangalore, and after the service, it's all chock-a-block. Everything is chock-a-block. I'm not just talking about the traffic, but even our time schedule is chock-a-block. We finish the evening service. After that, people come to get prayed over. And then we try and finish the prayers as quickly as possible, get into the car, and we've got to rush to the train station to catch the train to get to the next place the next morning. And so we barely have time to have conversations during that phase. But I remember a person I had known for some time, who had come for retreats before, and had joined the seminary. And so I was very taken up by that person joining the seminary after attending one of our retreats in the retreat center. So I knew him because he's met me a couple of times. After one of those Magnificats, he came up, and because it was him, I spent some time talking to him, and he said he's left the seminary. And I was very disappointed that a person who had joined because of our retreats and feeling inspired left the seminary. I think he was 2 years into the seminary formation, and he said, I left. And the reason why he said he left is what hurt me more. When he said, I could not find the presence of the Lord in the Holy Eucharist. He said, I'm battling to understand the Lord's presence in the Holy Eucharist. I found it so difficult every day in the seminary when we go for Holy Mass and we have to be there and I have to receive communion, and I cannot believe anymore. And he said, I just couldn't stay on, and that's why I left. I felt very sad in my heart. I still remember that days because it was one of the most saddest moments after a whole service you do in the evening, and then you see a person who joined the seminary because of one of your retreats, and then they're leaving because they couldn't believe in the Holy Eucharist. It was a very sad moment for me, and it hurt a lot within my heart. Later I came to know that he joined a denominational sect, so he's not I don't know what it is now. Now it's been many, many years. But he joined a denominational sect and left the Catholic faith. But the reason I'm saying this now also is because during that same retreat, as we had people coming in, that same Magnificat, we had people coming in. After that, there was a person who came and told me, Father, I'd like to share my testimony. I said, I have no time because we have to catch the train. So we had to get in. The people taking us, kept pushing us to get into the car so that we can be taken to the station. And this person asked me, which station are you going to? He came to the station to talk to me. A young man came to the station to talk to me. And he spoke to me during the time we waited for the train to start. And he spoke about his journey of how he found the Lord through the Holy Eucharist. A person who was not of the Christian faith but joined because of a denominational church, and he was very, very strongly into the denominational church, something very deeply rooted in the word. He said the first time he came for the Magnificat was to distribute flyers that were connected to their program in their denominational church. So there would be a big crowd that would come for these Magnificats. So outside, anybody distributes a flyer, you can't do anything about it. And this is the St. Joseph's College, so it is a Catholic institution. Right outside, he said, I would stand and I would distribute these flyers about our denomination church. And because everyone was moving in, a couple of times I've come in, and he said the Eucharist touched me a lot. I felt the presence of Jesus there, but still there was some kind of an emptiness. And he said every month I would come there for the Magnificat, not because I wanted anything else. The Eucharist is what started stirring something, but still there was an emptiness within me. And he said he made his journey, he embraced the Catholic faith, and he said the first time he received the Lord in the Holy Eucharist, it felt like some block was being taken off. And he said, my experience with the Eucharist was so blessed. I was so thankful to the Lord that night when he gave me that testimony, because I was very heartbroken with what the seminarian said and the reason why he left. Sometimes the Lord has a way to balance things out in your life, and you need that. And for me, I needed that night when I heard someone leaving because they couldn't feel the presence of the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament, in the Holy Eucharist. A seminarian who would leave because he couldn't feel and understand the Lord's presence. And then a young man who is looking and saying, I found Jesus in the Holy Eucharist. This is not just one testimony. You'll read of many, many people who have found the Lord in the Holy Eucharist. Take a very, very famous apologist is Dr. Scott Hahn. His book called Rome Sweet Home is a beautiful book of his journey from a Presbyterian into being a Catholic, and his talks all over the YouTube. His books are amazingly beautiful as well. A person who found the Catholic faith because of the Holy Eucharist. When we go through the scriptures and we go into Luke chapter 24, that's the connection. And I wanted to start out with this for one particular reason. The whole month, last month, we prayed about the power of the Lord in the Holy Scriptures, the power of the Word. Now to understand the power of the Eucharist, which is essential for us. It is not enough to know the power of the Word. We need to know the power of the Eucharist. We cannot just know the power of the Word. We need to know the power of the Eucharist. In Luke chapter 24, we read about the walk to Emmaus. Now, this is a full talk I generally take. So I'm going to just take an essential part of this for us to make that connection from what we did last month to what we are going to be doing during this month. So the walk to Emmaus is when Jesus had told the disciples, you wait in Jerusalem. But two of the disciples leave. This is Luke 24 verse 13 onwards. They leave Jerusalem very disappointed, and they're going towards a village called Emmaus. Jesus had told them to wait in Jerusalem so that they will be filled with power from above. But they have left, and they're going away from Jerusalem. Now, there are elements of this that I cannot speak of now because it's a whole full talk. But I'll just get to the essence. As they were going, the word says, Jesus came and walked with them. They didn't recognize the Lord. They spoke about their disappointments. They spoke about how they feel defeated because they thought Jesus was the Messiah. Now he's not there anymore. He was persecuted and he was killed. So it is in that disappointment that Jesus is speaking to them. And the word says, Jesus explains to them the scriptures. In Luke 24:26, it says, was it not necessary? Let's go from verse 25. Then he said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have declared. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and then enter into his glory?" Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them the things about himself in all the scriptures. So he's opening the scriptures to them. And he's speaking to them about the word and the power of the word. And that is what they are embracing. So we see now they come to the village to which they were going. They've reached Emmaus. Jesus acted as though he was walking on ahead, and they said, "No, stay with us. It is night, you stay with us." And Jesus stayed with them. So now the story should have been over. They were distraught, they were disturbed, they were defeated, and Jesus spoke the word to them. When Jesus spoke the word to them, they tell the Lord, "Stay with us." Now, they make a reference to this later on in verse 32. Luke 24:32. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" Our hearts were burning within us. So that is what happens, and that is what we did right through last month. The power of the word that makes our hearts burn within us. That's the power of the word. But there is an incompleteness to this. So we read in Luke chapter 24, verse 28 onwards, they came near to the village which they were going to. He walked ahead as if he were going on, but they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it is almost evening and the day is now nearly over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. And then it says, then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. Their eyes were opened and they recognized him. Now, when he opened the word to them, their hearts were burning, but their eyes were still closed. Their eyes opened is when they partook of Jesus in the Holy Eucharist. And the word continues to say, their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. And that's very strange. Why should he vanish from their sight? There's no other conversation that goes on after that. There's no explanation by Jesus what he did and what they were supposed to do further. Nothing of the sort. Jesus does not exhort them about anything after that. He broke the bread, gave it to them, they partook of it, their eyes were open, he vanished from their sight. So why did Jesus vanish from their sight? Because now Jesus is in the bread. He's in the Eucharist. He doesn't have to be physically present there. He's present in the Eucharist. And therefore, he doesn't need to speak anymore physically to them. We read these were disciples who had moved away from Jerusalem. What do they do after receiving the Eucharist? Immediately, Jesus did not exhort them anything. He did not tell them anything. He did not advise anything. He just gave of himself in the Eucharist. They received the Eucharist. Their eyes were opened, and it says immediately they left and they went back to Jerusalem. Jesus didn't need to exhort them. Now the Eucharist is speaking to them. The Lord in the Eucharist is speaking to them. So it wasn't enough to be filled with the power of the Word. It was essential that they be filled with the power of the Eucharist. And we need to set this platform right even as we start making this journey through this month. The power of the Word is one thing. The power of the Eucharist is also another thing. The two things that become very, very essential. And that is why even in the Eucharist, we cannot have a Eucharist without the word being proclaimed. That is why you have the liturgy of the word. Now, during the month, we'll speak about these different aspects and how it becomes a powerful experience for us. But today we are just placing this platform. Why the Eucharist? The essence of the Eucharist, so that our eyes will be opened. And that is what we need to pray for. In the two examples I gave you, it was strange. One was a person who was born a Catholic, raised a Catholic, got touched by a retreat, went into the seminary, has celebrated so many masses before, has been a part of so many Eucharists before, and yet he went away saying, I didn't experience anything. And then there is a person who was not brought up as a Christian, embraced the Christian faith, and then came into an experience of the Eucharist, thirsted for the experience of the Eucharist, and his eyes was opened and he found the Lord there. During this journey, we need our eyes to be opened so that we might see the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. We might understand and experience his real presence in the Holy Eucharist. How many times most of us who are attending this retreat are Catholics? Most of us attending this retreat are people who have grown in the Catholic faith, cradle Catholics. How many Eucharists we have celebrated? How many Eucharists we have been a part of? How much of experience have we had of the Lord in the Holy Eucharist? The Holy Eucharist is meant to be experiential. The whole reason for the Holy Eucharist is for us to experience the Lord. So I need to feel that powerful presence of the Lord in the Holy Eucharist. So my attitude needs to be right for that. My demeanor needs to be right for that. My thought needs to be right for that. Because there is no greater miracle than the miracle of the Holy Eucharist. Out of all the miracles that Jesus has done in the scriptures, and out of all the miracles that the Lord has done down the centuries, there is no greater and more consistent miracle that takes place amongst us than the miracle of the Holy Eucharist, where a simple piece of bread and a little wine becomes the body and blood of Jesus Christ. There's no greater miracle than that. And miracles are meant to be experienced. So am I experiencing that miracle? Is the Eucharist turning into a miracle for me? Or is it just something habitual? It is something obligatory. And I aren't actually having any experiences here. The greatest of all prayers is the Eucharist. And the greatest of all miracles is the Eucharist. I need to experience him. So during this month, that is what we are going to be doing. To understand what and how and why the Eucharist can become a miracle for me, a powerful experience for me. We need to know that. We need to understand that. Just give you a bit of data, a small little idea of data that's connected recently to what happened in the US, where they did a survey amongst Catholics, church-going Catholics. They did a survey about how many believe in the Lord's presence in the Holy Eucharist. And apparently, only 40% of church-going Catholics believed that it is Jesus in the Holy Eucharist, the real presence. The others just looked at it as a symbolic presence. Then how will the Eucharist become a powerful experience if I don't really believe in the Lord's presence in it? So during this month, we will really stir our heart to understand what this Eucharist means for us. and why it is so essential to us and how it becomes powerful for us. Let us prepare ourselves for that during the next 1 month. So I'm praying that all of us will journey together. Don't stop halfway. Don't stop in a couple of days. Every day we will take different parts of the Eucharist to understand how it becomes a powerful experience for us. We need this for our Catholic faith. So I'm begging you, during this next 1 month, don't give up halfway. You listen to the word and you adore the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament, and we make that journey of faith so that we who are blessed with this beautiful gift and powerful gift will know how to use this blessed gift. Let's all kneel.